Do you know what the thing is? I think we should do a new thing.
Oh,
would you like to know what it is? We need to be endorsing one another with nicknames like they do in the tank.
Oh, like War Daddy and Kunas.
And Bible, and that would be you, and Machine, and Old Man.
An old man. No, it's got to be like Walker or something.
Right. It would have to be, because it's too on the nose if it's just Old Man.
I think it's Liver Spot.
And Trailer.
If you think it can't get worse, it can, and it will. The dying's not done, the killing's not done. I promised my crew a long time ago I'd keep them alive.
I was afraid you were dead. Where's the rest of 3rd Platoon?
We're it.
Sergeant Collier, I'm your new assistant driver.
Tank school? That's home.
Never even seen the inside of a tank.
You will. I started this war killing Germans in Africa. Now I'm killing Germans in Germany. Been with these fine gentlemen for years. These troops get by you. We're all dead in the water. All we got is you. I won't ask you to do anything I haven't done myself. Comm check.
Photo check.
Brady check.
Bond check.
Bravo check.
Bar! All right! Hit that son of a bitch! Head out! Do your job! Do what you're here for!
Ideals are peaceful. History is violent.
Wait till you see it. See what? What a man can do to another man. I'm scared.
I'm scared too.
It will end soon, but before it does, a lot more people gotta die.
Well, you know we do get $1.35 a day, right? Best job I ever had. Best job I ever had.
Best job I ever had.
They're coming.
How many?
300 of them. There's 5 against 300.
We never run before. Why are we gonna run now?
We're still in this fight. Still in this fight. Now.
Welcome, everybody, to the Next Reel Film Board. We are gathered here today to take to this thing called Fury, a new film. It came out just last week, just Friday. It's a very exciting film. It is by the wonderful David Ayer, writer and director. David Ayer stars Brad Pitt and Shia LaBeouf and Logan Lerman and a whole lot of other wonderful people, which we will talk about in some detail. Before we get to that, though, I'm Pete Wright. And sitting over there across from me is Steve Sarmento.
Hey, everybody.
And Tom Metz.
Hi, friends.
And Andy Nelson.
Best job I ever had.
There we go. And we are here once again, and everybody has seen the film, and we're ready to talk about it. I'm gonna start. I usually go last. I'm gonna start. I'm gonna kick this one off. I love this film. I had a delightful time watching this film, and I love just about everybody in it. I had a really hard time picking this one apart, and I am really frustrated when I find this is one of those movies where I find myself really frustrated when I read critics who don't like it. Am I alone?
Can you say that last part again? I ran to get my notes.
Oh, no.
I am a consummate professional. Flick shot! All right, come on.
Seriously, did you not like this film?
Me, personally?
Yeah, you personally.
No, I really liked it.
Oh, good. I thought you were going to throw me under the tank.
How come? That's not that's not a phrase, and B, throw you under the tank.
It is.
C,
you have to commit to it. Come on.
I'm sorry. I'm starting my brain up. I apologize.
I'm excited to hear your thoughts on this film. Give me the quick rundown. What'd you think?
For me, I really liked it, and at times, in spite of myself, there were times that I felt with this kind of a film, this is very callous, and I don't feel great about saying it, but sometimes about films like this, I feel kind of like war is hell. And if that's all you have to say, then it becomes at risk of being World War II porn. That with these World War II films, we have to keep updating the atrocities that we see. We have to keep making things worse and worse in order just to make this story still worth telling. That being said, this film very much so not won me over, but I was absolutely captivated. It was incredibly harrowing. I had some problems, I guess, with the storyline, or more importantly with the characterizations, but I thought it was thrilling and scary and terrifying and incredibly... The best phrase that I was able to come up with, which is not a good phrase, was lived in. It felt incredible. I guess realistic is the best way to say it, that I felt like I was going on a journey with these guys, a journey that I would never want to have gone on. Was kind of glad I did, and gave me so much more respect for people that did that. So I was definitely a fan.
Excellent. Steve?
I'm sort of coming from the same place that Tom was, in terms of, okay, there have been just so many films on World War II, and what new story do we have to tell that we haven't seen before? Because yes, we know war is horrible. What can they bring new to the genre? And that's what I thought going in. And I came out of this film just really, I don't know, just with a heavy heart. This was a film that just hit me a lot harder than I thought it was going to. I mean, I've seen a lot of films. I mean, about war, Platoon and, Black Hawk Down,
Saving Private Ryan,
30, Saving Private Ryan, that, Thin Red Line that have done this. And this one just really hit me differently, that it just was like a boulder was resting on my chest after this film of just why did this move me so much? And there's a lot that happens in this film, and there's so many elements. I think, as Tom pointed out, we go on this journey. We really connect with these guys. This almost like a family unit here, and it really moved me, and it reminded me of the fact that my grandfather, my dad's father, fought in World War II. He was in a tank. He was out in the Pacific, though. Unfortunately, he passed away when I was 7. I never really had a chance to talk to him about his experiences, but just seeing this and then reflected on that, I just thought, oh my gosh, just what those guys go through. It was just really heavy, and it was not something that I expected to hit me that hard. So I hate to say I enjoyed this film, but it was much more powerful than I anticipated.
I agree. Very heavy. Andy?
I feel like I'm going to be ripped apart.
You're the one.
On this episode, I'm the guy.
Oh, that's right. You hate America.
That's right. Yes, it's like the Oscars when Ellen was just like, if 12 Years a Slave doesn't win, then you're all racist. It's like, yes, I'm that guy who hates America.
So we have to make can we sort of make, I don't want to, sorry, Pete, this is Pete and Andy, this is your podcast, but can we sort of
please
draw the line across that and say, feel free to speak honestly, because it's about World War II, we can speak forever. We would accidentally spend all of our time saying, but of course I love our troops, of course I respect, if we can talk about the film itself.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
I think that's important to feel free to do that.
No, and I totally do. I mean, there's definitely for me a separation from World War II to this film. I loved the characters in this film. I thought they were really solid, despite, and I think you were alluding to it, Tom, some character traits that they infused into them that felt a little
one note.
Yeah, just they needed to get some stereotypes in there to make us pick them out easier. But I thought the performances were fantastic. And it was a very interesting war film because it was very much, for me, it seemed like a character piece, because the
the nature of the story is kind of not there, and that's, I think, my biggest problem with it. Is I just really the story and the way they developed the story was really uninvolving for me. And as much as I enjoyed the performances in it, I never got connected to any of the characters. I enjoyed the sequences, but like the battle scenes, as technically fantastic as they were. Like I was never on the edge of my seat. Like, what's going to happen? It never struck me, and I kept getting distracted by things like, how did they make Brad Pitt's scars so nicely, and random things like that I shouldn't be thinking about when I'm watching a movie like this. And I just had a really hard time getting myself involved in the story, and that for me was the biggest issue that I had.
You're not on an island alone with that. I'm definitely more positive for the film than you are, but I have a lot of those same kind of feelings, if that helps at all.
Yeah, I won't say I hate the film. I'm saying I couldn't connect to it.
Oh, that's good, because in my notes I wrote, Tom loved it, had character issues. Steve, war as hell, and Andy Wright says, guy who hates things. So I hope we can redeem that in my notes. I'm interested in diving in a little bit on the stereotypes of the characters, because I think that's a very natural place for this film. And I think part of the things the thing that I liked so much about it was that the intimacy that we get to see within this tank crew. And it starts in the very beginning when we lose the main bow gunner, the assistant driver, and the fact that the film starts at the end of a clearly horrendous battle in which they suffered devastating loss, I thought was a wonderful way to kick off this film. I mean, it put me so into the mode. And an aside, as I distract myself, the opening shot, I was really riveted by the opening single shot.
With the SS on the horse?
The SS on the horse, because when he's in the distance, just the way it comes up with that sort of high-key, bright sky, it looks like you're coming in over a forest until you see him resolve. And then for just a second, he's a giant man on a horse, just tromping across a German forest. And then you get to see that it is just this incredibly, war-torn, muddy field. And I thought that was just fantastic. So I love that. I love the introduction of the team as this team that's already in a state of disaster, and yet they have to find a way to come together. And I love the pain. You really get the film that the feeling that Don, Brad Pitt's character, War Daddy, this tank sergeant, is feeling great pain at bringing on this other young guy, this young clerk who was assigned to this tank. Like, he feels great pain, and I felt like that set the tone so well for me to meet this sort of body of soldiers. I thought it really worked well. What is it that gave you guys character trouble here?
For me, actually, I would like not to go first, if that's okay.
That's fine. I'll go. I mean, it was, the I don't know. I felt like they had to go to the cliche. Let's bring in the most possibly inexperienced person that they can bring into this scenario, so we can see it through his eyes.
The audience surrogate.
Yeah, the audience surrogate. The guy who's never even been in a tank before. That to me is just like, of course, that's going to be the guy that they're going to throw in for us. And again, this is, as much as I love these performances, because I think it was 5 absolutely outstanding performances of these guys, or 4. No, it's 5. I get confused. But the and then just their reaction, their interactions, just like as they go around introducing them, and it's just don't get too close to anybody. It's just it felt like all that sort of stuff was like, of course they're going to say that. Of course they're going to say that. Of course they're going to do this. I don't know. It's those little things that felt like standard sort of stuff to me, and I don't know. I guess I liked the characters, but those elements of them, I felt like it's kind of just the standard war scenes that they're writing in here.
I wonder how much of that is because what we know from history is that this kind of stuff happened. Like, these were the pivotal moments of history, and that we know that when we had a troop shortage, they brought in anyone and everyone that was wearing green, and you ended up having people who were like, I feel like to me that was a very realistic element, like a historical element that was accurate to me. Like it felt well, and I wonder how much of your reaction to it is because other films have hit that tone. It doesn't make them wrong. It doesn't make them bad. It just means there are other films that are equally historically accurate, and now you're tired of it?
Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, I'm not saying that isn't the case, that they weren't bringing in these young guys. It just feels like it's something that is a tried and true way to tell these stories by using those elements.
So the better question then, Andy, is do you think it would have been better had we just not had to deal with that loss? Like, would it have been enough to you just to meet the tank crew intact?
Maybe. I mean, I was thinking about that as I left. I'm like, because in my head, I was comparing this with Das Boot, which I think is an amazing World War II film, where they're putting you in a confined space with a team of people. But I loved the characters, and I was so much more involved in that story than this one. Granted,
but they still brought in the green.
Twice as long.
They brought in the green guy. He was the reporter. He was not a submariner.
No, but yeah, I mean, but there was so much. I think it was just there was so much more time spent on all the character development beforehand that I got to know those characters before we went into war. In this particular film, I didn't get to spend any time with any of the characters, and I was just thrust into the middle of it, and so all I had to cling on to was, this is the new guy. You know, I didn't have all that backstory of the wonderful stuff of them cavorting in the bar and all that sort of stuff. Like, I was like, if they started this, like if he came on at like a place like the town where all the guys are partying and drinking and screwing around with all the local women and all that, and I got to know the characters a little more, and then I went into it, I feel like maybe I would have connected a little more. I don't know.
I have potentially one of the biggest differences about just the idea of bringing in the greenhorn, the tenderfoot, is okay, because I mean, Platoon, one of the greatest war movies ever made, is done that. One of the things that David Ayers does, though, a lot is that he constricts the time so much to just 24 hours, like Training Day.
Yeah,
right.
And this, whereas things like Platoon, other things that the audience surrogate is brought in, but there's more time to be spent with the team, and more time, naturally and organically, to be able to understand where they're coming from. There's no real time to be able to spend with this team. I think it works for and against this film. But I think that's one of the biggest problems, is not that just the idea of we're bringing in an audience surrogate, a greenhorn, that it's that if you do that then and just restrict it to a 24-hour period where no one will naturally have these, here's my backstory and stories, that's where it becomes a little bit more difficult. Is that potentially right, Andy?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. When you squeeze all of that down, you're only left with kind of the stereotypes, as opposed to having more time to develop all that.
And I both like that in this film and don't like it. I think that's a screenwriter that can be, for certain screenwriters, an easy way out. And for other screenwriters can give just a incredible, just sort of slice of life part of war, which I think is what Fury is.
Yeah, it very much is just a very small piece of the action, which I did like that also quite a bit.
Yeah,
I think that's another piece of it, though, is this idea of having of putting us in. I don't know. I don't know a lot of World War II tank movies. Right. I mean, I know there are a handful, but the movies that I remember are like,
few.
Yeah, and they're like from the 50s. Tanks are coming, Paratroop Command.
Tanks for the Memories.
Kelly's Heroes, I think, was Donald Sutherland was a tank commander in Kelly's Heroes. So
Tank it up for what?
Are you on like a BuzzFeed list of 50s tank films?
Take it up for what? That was
that?
Supposed to be a joke. No, because the song Turned It Up for What? I'm trying to bring in the younger listeners.
Oh, God.
Take it up for what?
I totally derailed you. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
You keep doing what you do.
Oh, good.
It's your jam. So anyhow, I'm not familiar with that, and so as a result, like this, I found was a novel approach to this. It was a piece of the war that I was really interested in seeing. You know, I found myself really kind of compelled to see what these guys, what life was like inside this you know, this old Tiger tank, and you know, it was. I felt like they delivered on that.
Well, I think the character piece for me with this was, because it is condensed into sort of the 24 hours, is, you know, you don't get that typical, you know, character arc, that development of, you know, here's the new guy to, you know, the crew, and so over time he's gonna, you know, endure these situations. You're gonna see this transformation. You don't have time for that to happen in 24 hours, and we do see a little bit of that. And to me, that was, you know, I had trouble buying it when he's saying, "Oh yeah, you know." When they're in the town and he like shoots all those guys and they're like, and he's like, oh yeah, I really kind of liked it. And I'm like, I think he, you know, is he faking it, you know, just so that they, you know, get off his case? Because I don't get the sense that within that amount of time, he's really like, oh yeah, I'm buying into this, you know, shooting people.
If it helps at all, I think he was faking it at that.
Yeah,
point.
I do.
Yeah. So, you know, by the end, so I thought, okay, when he comes out, you know, at the end, I mean, he's like shell shocked. He's, you know, everything that he's gone through. So I thought, okay, it's not really about how war transforms a person. And I thought about what's the point of the story? You know, again, there's you know, a lot of really good movies that tackle World War II. What is this one trying to say? And I thought, is it more of not just war is hell, but the decision that these guys have to make at this crucial point at the crossroads? You know, what is their justification for that? And I think it's, how do guys get in a position where they're willing to make the, you know, put their lives on the line, to make a sacrifice, their commitment to each other, you know, how does that develop? You know, to me, that's really what the story's about. It's not about the transformation of a character, but their commitment to an ideal. And I think I think War Daddy says it, that, you know, ideals are peaceful and war is violent. History is violent, and we see sort of that, the intersection of that. So it's, to me, as I reflected on this, I thought it's really more about that, about these guys and the decision they make, because they're given a choice. War Daddy gives them a choice, and why are they so devoted to him? You know, what is it in, you know, his decision making process, his commitment to the guys, to what he feels his mission is? That's really sort of the crux of the story that holds everything together. And maybe it's something that on a second viewing, because there's so much that's just visually overwhelming and intense, and even the score, the soundscape of the film, I mean, there's just so much going on to really sit back and look at, because I saw it just, you know, this afternoon, to really sort of, I'm still distilling everything down to what did I just survive in this film, and what did these guys, who are they? And I think that's sort of why we get to where we start where we do, because they're all, you know, they've endured this loss with, you know, a key member of their team, as War Daddy says, this is the, you know, the best, you know, assistant, you know, or whatever, and, you know, and that, now I've got you. So there's, you know, they had a cohesive unit. We don't know how long they'd all been together. You know, all 5 of them had been together, but apparently perhaps since North Africa. So for years,
right. And
now we've got a replacement. So how are they going to react to that? How's this guy going to fit in? So it's an interesting dynamic. I like where it started, because loss is a great part of this film for these guys, and I think it was crucial to start with that, not just introducing this new guy into a unit, but to see where they're coming from, what situation he's walking into. It's not just, oh, they completed mission. They were the last survivors of a catastrophe and lost, you know, a vital crew member, and now they've got this guy. And to me, that's sort of how I'm trying to reconcile the character piece versus, you know, your traditional character arcs, and, you know, why are these guys stereotypes? There's something a little bit more going on, I think.
And that makes a lot of sense, because for my character problems that I had with the film being that they were a little bit one note at times, that I cared about them all very much by the end, because I was stuck in a tank with them. I mean, a part of what you were saying, and I think you're right, Steve, about the idea that it's about ideals. I also think that maybe, and this is partly borrowing from other films that David Ayers has written or directed, part of it is also forced camaraderie.
Yeah.
Of just that you have a mission, but the mission becomes the mission is only as important as protecting the guy next to you, the people that you are with, and the people that are in this impossible mission with you. And then as a result, you have to protect them. You have to do everything you can to do whatever you can to make them still alive at the end of the day. And that's where ethics and ideals and everything gets really, really messy. And I like that the film went for that for me. So I just wanted to, sorry to repeat myself, but just again, I had problems with the characters. They seemed one note at times, but I felt like I was trapped with them. And as a result, I felt like I cared about them. And I feel like Norman did a good job in coming around in that way.
Talk about John Bernthal. I think that was one that was of some controversy. His portrayal of the
was controversy,
wasn't there? I mean, I think Tom wasn't. Didn't you think he was a little bit? Was he one of the one note? I'm interpreting your last Slack message.
Right. No, I appreciate it. Yeah, he's just the worst of the worst, and I know that. Especially back in the day, or maybe even I shouldn't. All right, we gave each other. We're not worrying about social lines and army and stuff like that. But I mean, yeah, his character is represented by saying, "Stop kicking me. I'm not an animal." And the hero of the film, War Daddy, Brad Pitt, says, "Yes, you are. You only respond to the boot or the heel," or something like that. Yeah. And that was pretty true. Like, he's horrible. He's a horrible person with one weirdly bright light of insight. But it became okay for me at some point because just at some point the dirt and the grime and I don't want to skip over topics, but the ability for David Ayer to show the amount of boredom at times of battle, of just riding through battle, and it's so boring because the tanks do not move fast. And then you're going from 0 to 100, from sleep time to you're about to die. That changes someone. And I think the film is a lot about that. And so the film, to a certain point, gave me enough. I could have used more than the screaming horses speech personally, but that it helped with the idea of that because they made it clear that they started in Africa and went to Belgium and France, and I don't remember the order, they've been in here for so long. Yes, some of them are animals. Some of them have just retreated to their most primal state, whatever they can. And it made it more okay for him to be the worst person in the world. I still hated him.
Why did you need more than the horse's speech? You didn't like that one? Or you just wanted, what did you need to make that more rich?
It's a little uncomfortable to say, but it's what I talked about before in my opening, which was World War II porn, is that I feel that the problem when we make... I know we've already said that this film isn't just about war is hell, but it's very episodic. There's no real through line. There's no, when we get to this point, then we will solve the day. It just sort of keeps happening. And I'm okay with that. And we could talk about that in the future. But the point is that when you don't have a through line, when you don't have, especially if it's not a true story, and this is just for me, if you don't have a true story that you're telling, then you're just retelling anecdotes about the horrors of war, and you have to keep upping them and upping them and upping them because of all of the horrible things we've seen and heard about and read about but also really for this podcast, seen in films. And the screaming of horses, it didn't, in a completely different way, and he's not a part of this thought at all, it didn't move me.
But I don't think its purpose
agree with
was
you there.
to move you. Its purpose wasn't to move you. Look at where that scene occurs.
Well,
We've got War Daddy and Norman who are having their sort of reprieve from the war, and there's because the scene struck me as really odd at first. I thought, what's going on here? And it's War Daddy's attempt to sort of show his other side to Norman, to say, I'm not just the one side you see of me. I've got the civilized side, and we can have this moment. And I think also for War Daddy, it's his reprieve. We see it, everything wears on him. He's got to put a face on to keep these guys together. He's got to be the leader. He's got to be the strength. He's got to carry all that, and it's wearing on him. We see that in several scenes. So here's this moment where he's sort of stepping back.
But it seems like that's the story that is
right.
The one.
So why does John Barenthal, why does Kunas tell him that story? Because hey, you can't get away from this. It's here, and it's also a reminder to Norman, you didn't go through this with us. We have this. We've seen horrible things together. So you're not part of our team yet.
And I completely agree, and I think that's exactly what the film was trying to do. What I'm saying is the horribleness and the desensitization that sometimes I go through is, and I'm really sorry, the story wasn't horrible enough.
Huh. Okay.
Sicko.
I know that,
that's
and
gruesome.
I told you that I was very uncomfortable saying this. That's why I called it World War II porn. I mean, we've heard in films many much more worse things than the idea of what horses smell like when they're dying.
But you know what, Tom? That's why I actually really liked it, and I liked it coming from John Bernthal's character.
It came from Gordo, guys. It came from Gordo.
Right. Like I said, Gordo's character.
Oh, because it meant something to him versus
right. That's what I mean. Like that's what we get to see. Like what's important to these guys. You know what I mean? Like this is the element. I mean, it's not. To me, this is like the bar is set for these kinds of monologues. The bar is set at Quint's speech. You know what I mean? I mean, sure. It's a similar function. It's a pause in the drama, and it's a sense to give you perspective of the history that these people had together. And right. In Jaws, this tale of the Indianapolis was a stunning sort of legendary moment in film for me. Yeah. And this was. I think serves the same purpose, but it serves the same purpose. To me, that sequence was really powerful because I think, there's a reprieve. There's a sense of reprieve that we have War Daddy taking Norman to kind of get away from the war. But the other piece of it is he is a teacher. He is the consummate teacher, the archetypical teacher. And what he is doing right now is he is educating Norman to the ways of war. And he's doing it in a very civilized way. But he's doing it nonetheless. He's doing it really what he's doing in spite of putting this civilized face on it and delivering the eggs and having a nice breakfast. It is a massive violation.
Oh, good.
Right.
I'm so glad that so much of that scene was so uncomfortable for me, and at some point it became cutesy and nice, and I just wanted to make sure that everyone thought that it was super weird. Whoa. I mean, they broke in that door.
They broke in that door.
It was
they
terrifying.
Put those women into a position of great terror and violated them. That is what happened in that room, and they did it with gentleness, and they did it, and it turned on a dime, and you know, but really, what happened there was a violation to me, and I think that.
But then it's re-violated by the bad guys.
Guys. Right.
And they come in and they just make you. I felt that they really just make you aware of that it really is a violation.
Yes.
That none of this was really as nice as War Daddy's trying to make it seem.
Do you think Ayer knew that though? Because she came over and started like happily singing with him at the beginning. I thought that
she was the young one. She wasn't as versed in the ways of war as her cousin seemed to be. You know,
she was crying as soon as they came in.
Yes.
I got really uncomfortable with that scene, and that I felt that the director, and maybe I'm wrong, but that the director thought that there was a turn, that it was like, this is not a violation anymore. This is now pretty civilized, and maybe it was in a certain way, and this is all fine. And then it's like, nope, it's still crappy. It seemed always a violation. She's young and she seems nice. You take her into that room, or you take me, or I'll take her.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. This was one way or another. This was a rape. I mean, this was a massive violation, and they did it under the guise of this is what war is like. And because Norman had no sense of war, this was yet, and I mean, this was the civil mirroring of the sequence that had come just before, when he had to force Norman to shoot the SS soldier, and that I found was equally troubling to watch. I mean, it was incredibly difficult to watch, but all of it is in the service of education, of indoctrination into this otherwise completely disturbed family unit.
Oh, God, I love all of that. I love everything that you just said, especially because and I'm not shining a light up a tunnel. I don't know what phrases are, but the point being that also, like, that in those times and in that tank, in that family, you can't not be there. Your
Right.
action of not doing something is not allowed, because then you will kill other people.
Right, and I think we got that. I mean, that was the point. We got to witness the guy jumping out of the tank on fire. I mean, that was a horrible thing, but it was all in the service of this idea that we know, Norman, you don't want to be here. We know you want to be typing 60 words a minute, and you know what? We don't want you here either. But if you're going to be here, here are the rules, and we know you don't want to learn them, but you have to learn them because we have no choice, or we die.
And probably we didn't want to learn them.
Right. Nobody wants to learn them. We're all we're all worse for this experience. And I think that, for me, was the message of the film. This was a horrible time in history. We are worse for our experience having done it, but here we are.
And you kill them, or they kill us.
Well, that's kind of where I ended up.
Yeah, and but I mean, he literally says that. That seems to be one of the biggest. That's it. It has to be that. I mean, they say, like, if there's children in the way, you have to shoot through them.
Right.
Duh.
So that violation of the three guys coming into that scene.
I think the violation started before that, but yes.
Well, to me, that, my interpretation of that, what I was taking away from that is sort of, how absurd is it to attempt to pretend that life is normal when there's war going on. And because when that violence shows up on your doorstep, how uncomfortable is that? And it's unavoidable. And I thought, is there more to this than just sort of what's going on with each of the characters and the dynamics, or is this a larger commentary on there's war going on in the world and you're trying to go about your daily lives, and shouldn't we be shocked and appalled because what goes on out there, if that were to show up in our backyard, it would make us uncomfortable, and it should, because people become animals, and all sense of propriety goes out the window, because it's like, we're going to sit down, we're going to have breakfast or whatever, and it's like, okay, he goes and he licks the girl's eggs, and he's like, hey, I didn't touch her, and it's just this intrusion, this violation of how we should behave. And to me, it was not just about the story, but to me, I thought that's the point where there's something else larger that this film was trying to say about the role of war and how we try to act civilized when there's just brutality out in the world.
Well, I think you see that multiple times too, Steve, right? I mean, when he walks he takes Norman into the house and says, look at these people. Like, they all killed themselves, but they got dressed up in their finest clothes and drank their finest booze and
got
killed
drunk
themselves.
as lords.
They got drunk as lords and killed themselves. I think that's another example of that same message.
It reminds me a bit of the extra, or the director's cut of Apocalypse Now, when you see when he meets the French family still trying to. It's the idea of sort of what's the phrase, like tidying the tables on the Titanic.
Yeah. Oh, it's deck chairs.
Arranging the deck chairs on the
Arranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. Yeah,
I like yours
exactly.
better. Tidying the tables.
it's tidying the violins on the Titanic. But I mean, it did very much, Steve. Also, as you were saying, have a little bit. It helped with War Daddy of just desperately, while trying to still keep his men in order, but not be a over-civilized person. He just it seemed like he tried to find a moment of civilization.
Yeah.
In this horribleness. My problem with the scene was that it was suspect from the beginning. But maybe it's like a couple levels. Maybe I'm not giving it enough credit of like that he's trying to create some civility. It's all horrible, and the women are under duress and all this stuff. Yeah. What I got uncomfortable with, let me know if I'm repeating myself, is that when the girl who was crying, I mean, she was young, but she wasn't like a little girl. She was crying when they came in. They all have guns, and then Norman starts playing the piano, the girl comes over and starts singing, and at some point it seems to seem kind of sweet. And he's like, oh, and they go back into the back room, and then the three loafs, the other guys from the tank come in, and you're like, oh, you screwed up civilization. Yeah. The civilization wasn't really there in the first place. They should have been terrified. I actually think that is a problem with the direction. Or with the script. The script made a false island or mirage of, see, we're all in here and we're all having eggs, and look, two young people, they should go in this back. They don't speak any of the same words. They should clearly have sex, and he reminds him to take off his gun. Yeah. That scene was fascinating, but I also think was really weird, and I think wrong. I think it was supposed to make me feel things that I didn't.
Well, and then on top of that, I think also it just takes it to the inevitable conclusion of then blowing them up, and it's just like wiping the whole thing. Of
course,
it's like taking to that next step that I don't know. That felt like almost another violation on the filmmaker's part of it's just like you have to end it that way, and I don't know, it just felt
right.
Well, yeah,
and it even adds more to the episodic nature of it.
Well, it's
that
closer
weird
to that.
Was done.
But I have a question for you guys, and this maybe it's just me, but the part that I had trouble with was the character of Bible in that scene. Because it seemed like he had sort of taken on this role of like, I'm going to sort of shepherd, Norman along. He seemed like, I understand, I'm going to help you out. But he seemed to be really opposed to what was going on, where I can understand the other two who we've set off as really, we have issues with the new guy. But Bible didn't really play that part earlier on. But suddenly when War Daddy has set up his little scenario here of like, we're going to have a little civilized breakfast, and when they start to tell a story, Bibles seem to really have problems. He seemed to be really upset. It's like he's tearing up, like War Daddy's denying something, and I couldn't get past, that. I'm like, there's something unspoken going on, and I'm not getting what it is. Why Bible's so upset?
Steve, I love you so much. That was the first time that I said I have no idea what Shia LaBeouf is doing. I thought he was great, but I mean,
if he'd done that scene with a paper bag on his head, then maybe
right. But he was just crying again. He was just crying and seemed angry.
I didn't know why.
I literally could not figure out his motivation at all. Thank you, Steve. I thought I was dumb. Great thoughts.
Okay, so we're both dumb. Yeah, I
don't think we're both dumb. I think
there's something.
I think it's very confusing. Yeah. What was his? He wasn't. The other two let themselves off by being drunk.
Right. Yeah.
What was? I mean, I tried to say
drunk
like
bitter,
drunk and bitter, but his was he angry that there was that he gave a sidelong glance to Norman and War Daddy when they were going up. But there was so much weight in what Shia LaBeouf was doing. I had no idea what was going on. And maybe that's okay. but it bothered me. That whole scene, I'm sorry that we're talking about that scene so much, and I feel like part of it is because I'm perseverating on it, but I mean, that scene was just one of the most expansive scenes in the film, and I had a lot of trouble with a lot of the motivation in it.
Well, I think we're spending a lot of time on it because a lot of the other scenes are, you've got your action sequences where we're going to fight the Tiger tank or where we get ambushed, and there's not a lot of character to that. It's sort of, we can talk about, the realism and, the choreography of that and the cinematography and the sound and all that, but that doesn't really get to what the film's about. And I think because of the structure of this scene, it's, the point where we can come to and say there's something going on here that we feel a need to find some meaning to this story. What is it trying to tell us? Because as we all said at the beginning, Tom, why tell a World War II story? And I think this is the scene we come back to of there's got to be some meaning here to justify the telling of this story, because everything else is just killing and carnage, which we expect, but this scene is different. We haven't seen this before. Why is this in this story? What are we supposed to get from this?
Yeah, certainly for me it was the most interesting scene in the film, and in good ways or bad.
It doesn't have to be that. Why was it interesting?
No, I think both. Well, because it was like Steve was saying, it was not expected. It was a scene that came kind of out of the blue, and it had really interesting motivations going on. It made me kind of uncomfortable with all the characters, even the ones that I had kind of been liking. And it was a I don't know, it was just, there was something really uncomfortable about it the entire time. But just fresh, like a interesting fresh way. Yeah,
not black or white. Exactly what's going on.
Right, exactly. I mean,
sure.
It paints the character motivations in a way that I wasn't expecting to see them taking this film into that place, because it's a tank movie, and so. It gave me a little more insight into these characters, and and as much as I didn't like their particular reasons for doing it or anything like that, I did find myself just drawn to the scene, and the one that I end up going back to when I think about it, because I found it so haunting, the interactions between all 5 of the tank guys and these 2 women, and it just haunting.
Well, I think the key piece
it's a good point.
with this scene is, I mean, in a war movie we expect gore and violence and be horrified by that, but I think what caught us all off guard in this scene is it made us uncomfortable in a way we didn't expect in this movie, and I think that's, if that was the intent, to make people uncomfortable, I mean, I think we've all proven that that's the response we got, and I think perhaps that was something that was unexpected for us, which is why we're all, we keep coming back to this scene. It was an emotional response that was unexpected in this film, and it was a scene that we hadn't seen before in this type of film, and maybe that's what he was going for with that. I don't know. I mean, if you go back even to the beginning, I think probably the uncomfort with that whole scene comes when we've established this, this relationship between Norman and Emma, where he's, you're going to have one great love in your life, and the guys come barging in. It's like, hey, we got a girl downstairs waiting for you, ready to go. And it's like, there's such a violation of what, the film has set up as, oh, here's this cute relationship. And now these barbarians come in like, hey, there's a girl down here, go do what guys do in the army. Just take advantage of these women, which intrudes upon this, family that's been established, this relationship, which is set up as like this pure little like love story.
And I'm sorry to butt in, Pete, because I know, Pete, you should go next. But
really? Who's keeping score?
You haven't spoken for forever, but I agree with that. My slight difference, though, is my uncomfortability is that I didn't feel safe in the hands of the director. Meaning, I don't feel that I was like Quentin Tarantino. There's tons of directors that put a lot of Tarantino probably isn't the best choice, but I feel like the scene was directed to make me feel a different way. I feel like the scene was supposed to be, we did this thing and isn't it scary, and we started in, but now we've created this family, and then it's now been violated. And I didn't agree with that. I didn't agree that he ever made it feel like a family. It was too much under duress. There wasn't enough time. Him just giving up eggs. There's too many guns in the scene. There wasn't enough time. And so my feeling of uncomfortability, like you were saying, Steve, of like, maybe that's what he wanted us to feel. This is just me. My uncomfortability for a viewer isn't saying that I'm uncomfortable because what he wanted to make me to feel. I'm uncomfortable because I don't feel I felt what he wanted me to feel.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
That I'm saying that I, the whole time, was like, this is, we can't swear on, this is messed up. This whole thing is messed up. And if it would have gone that way and then gotten more messed up, that would have been fine. But at some point it got really messed up, and then kind of just a very tenuous calm of like, I'm going to stop crying because you gave us eggs. Not, great, let's have a lunch.
But you know what? That, I think, is the point, Tom. And that's what I got out of it, at least, that you know,
that's as much as you can offer?
No, it's that everybody knows. Everybody in that scene knows that we're pretending now. And that's on the part of the German ladies, too. Is this idea, we know that, you know, as soon as you handed those eggs over, that became a trigger point where we knew we were going to start pretending.
Why did she go over and start singing? I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying.
I'm saying because they know that theirs is a role to be played as well.
But she seems so...
You're talking about the younger one, right?
Yeah, it seems
the
like
older one doesn't sing.
What I'm saying is, it seems like a meet cute. The older one is fine throughout. The younger one, it becomes a meet cute of, oh, you can play this, and I'll come over and I'll sing, and then we'll like hold hands.
Yeah, and I got that because it was.
I think the tone is wrong.
Oh, I didn't see it that way. I mean, I really walked out thinking, wow, that is a wonderful thing, because the older cousin, you just get this sense that she has trained the younger one into the ways of, you know, if this happens, we're going to need to soften the moment any way we possibly can. And that's going to include using our voices. It's going to include using our bodies. It's going to include using our voices or using our language. Like, we're going to have to find a way to get to the other side of this. And if that means ingratiate ourselves, you know, I think possibly what, you know, what it sounds like what you may be feeling, and just check me when I start lying, is this idea that her sincerity may have been too sincere, because I didn't read that as sincerity. I read that as she's playing a part. But that, again, is my judgment going into the film, sort of seeing it this way.
I felt it as she fell in, not absolutely, but fell in slight love with that boy.
Yeah. And you can sort of get that too.
Totally feel that way too.
There's this sense of adventure, and here's the bad boy, and I'm, you know, she was the young girl, and he was the young boy, and both of them were completely sort of novice to this world. They had been they had
But those
been
that's usually like star-crossed lovers things. There's another man with a scarred back with a gun in the room. That's not how star-crossed lovers work. Star-crossed lovers don't start with, oh, you're a bad boy, I'm a good guy, and my town was just destroyed, and there's another man with a gun in my room, and the bad boy is so bad that he has to be reminded to leave his gun at the door.
Oh, I hear you, Tom. I really do. But I just, you know, when I walk down, I feel like it sounds like I'm trying to convince you of something. I'm truly not.
I would kind of like to be convinced, because I mean, I'm not convinced, but like, because I said this is a very personal feeling that I had, that I felt the scene was wrong and weird.
Well, I just walked away really feeling like this scene was a way for the filmmaker to demonstrate all of the different variables that go into the players trying to make their day seem normal. And when they get some downtime, when they have the opportunity to slow down and not feel like they're running for their lives or having to or be assigned to kill, this is the way they're going to do it. And that means emotional connections end up moving quickly. That means social connections end up being false. But
that makes sense.
It's all okay because of this stage play we are conducting called The War.
Or in its most shallow, it's a simple plotting of we have to get Norman invested in somebody so that we can kill that character so that he understands that loss is a part of war, and that's what he needed to learn to move on in the story.
I prefer mine.
I do too. I
prefer yours too, Pete.
I prefer Pete's. I guess Pete, then maybe I think it just comes down to, and there's no I think it's just, it didn't play for me.
Yeah, I hear
in that I needed her to be a little bit, the actress, to be played a little bit more scared, to not be as happy as she was singing, to just sort of, to maybe give a look over at her aunt or whoever she was while she's singing, to give that idea of, is this something I should do? To not, when she doesn't understand the language, when he says, take her in that room or I will, to tap him on the shoulder. Oh, actually, that goes for your point. But then, that actually does go for your point, because I had a problem with that until you told me about it. But then, just a little bit more of because she seemed, also it's a mix of both. It's a mix of both your parts, because at the end, when they're leaving, she is clearly smitten with him. She was not playing a part.
Oh yeah, no, and they were both talking about, what's your address? I want to write you a letter. Yeah.
So see, that goes more a little bit. I don't want to make it a competition. That goes a little bit more to how I felt about the direction, was that these two teenagers just fell in love in 3 seconds. Well, gosh darn it.
I know. You can. It's okay. I think we should talk about the second most important point, which is there any truth to this report that Shia LaBeouf pulled out his own tooth for this role?
What?
I never heard that.
Is that true?
That's reported in a number of different places that Shia LaBeouf
he seems super stable.
He pulled out his tooth and refused to shower during the filming in order to feel what it was really like to do this.
I didn't hear that, but I did hear Brad Pitt say that he was really impressed with Shia LaBeouf's performance. So that's all I heard.
He said to quote,
so he was trying to one-up Brad
his
Pitt.
Yeah,
he was trying to one-up Brad Pitt, who had his teeth chipped or something for Fight Club. So he's going to be I'm going to have teeth pulled. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Let me see. It's on uk.movies.yahoo.com.
Oh, UK? So that's reliable? Okay.
Oh, now you've done it.
Stephen Smart's going to come after me, I know.
His determination to practice method acting has become something of a problem on the set of the World War II drama Fury. In trying to prove his dedication to the role, LaBeouf has apparently upset his colleagues. He was warned about his behavior, including by people like Brad Pitt and David Ayer. He didn't heed their warnings. He drove everyone mad on the set. He pulled out his own tooth during the first few weeks of filming and then refused to shower for weeks on end so he could better understand how his character would have felt in the trenches.
I'm starting to think that maybe this won't be a thing that we want to laugh about too much more sooner.
Well, it's really I was thinking about it.
He's got some things going on.
Maybe he does, but listen to my point, because I really feel like this is a whatever he has going on socially, psychosocially, psychologically, whatever he has going on, those are his demons, and he'll deal with them. But I have to admit, I sort of love this statement, because this I get the feeling that this is going to be one of those movies that it tells a big story in kind of a big way. And I think he, on some level, is betting that this is a movie he gets to make once, and that his performance as captured on this screen, on film, is one that will be captured once. And to me, that ends up being a pretty powerful statement around filmmaking, that he would be willing to do that kind of body modification so that it would be just right. It's not makeup. It's not a black cap. It's just right. And I think that's actually pretty powerful. It's not something to, you're absolutely right. It's not something to laugh about. To me, it just came off as a commitment to the craft and to the part. Now, whether that was motivated by some sort of an inner demon telling him to start pulling his teeth out is something completely different. But I found myself
Pitt chipped his own tooth for 12 Monkeys.
Yeah.
As you know.
Yeah.
Because of your guys, so potentially there was a little bit of a homage to that.
I think he just removed a repair work on his tooth, technically.
It's not like, what's his name in the Hangover? He actually didn't have a tooth, but it really looked great.
Ed Helms.
Ed Helms, that's right. That was a good gimmick. Anyway, so that's that. I we don't need to belabor that one anymore.
I had one thing that I wanted to bring up.
Sure.
If that's okay.
Please bring it.
The shooting style. I thought was for a World War II film, or any kind of war film actually now, or even an action film, I thought was very weirdly refreshing in how old school it was. In that and let me know if I'm wrong, but it seemed like so many like actually composed frames, almost like on a tripod, instead of that crazy in your face, let's say Steven Spielberg, D-Day, like that over frenetic filmmaking where the camera's going everywhere and that you're really there because it's almost hard to see where you are and to see what's going on. And I thought it was interesting. You guys can be the judge if this is interesting. But the difference between a film like Saving Private Ryan, when you're in the infantry, you're all over each other. You're on top of each other. And so the best way to show that is through someone's eyes, which is a crazy handheld, incredible shaky cam. Whereas this, if it's a tank war, of course there was artillery involved, but if it's a tank war, they're really far away. And they're so far away they have to use tracers for every couple bullets. Mm-hmm. And so I liked the idea of how steady the camera work was for almost all of the film.
And I would agree with that. And it's one of the things I didn't make so much of a connection of the bigger sequences, the longer shots, the tracer shots. But I think that's really true. And one of the sort of gift of that, of a lot of really stable shots is that you can keep up with the tracers, and that's particularly when they have the infantry guys behind the tanks, and you kind of get this sense that they could have gone down the road of the jiggly monkey, and mm-hmm. they chose not to. But I particularly noticed it inside the tank. Yes. there were 6 good angles, and that's it inside that tank. And I think they leveraged those really well.
It was neat. It felt more like a classic World War II film made now, which is really rare.
To the credit of, and I haven't been following Roman Vasyanov, who's the cinematographer of this film, but he came most recently from Charlie Countryman, another Shia LaBeouf film, The East. He did End of Watch with David Ayer, and so, are you guys, are you familiar with his other work? Have you seen these other films?
End of Watch is great. I'm sorry, I know about End of Watch. I should let other people talk.
Oh, well, I've just seen The East, which is, nothing spoke to me visually about that. It was a well-crafted film, but as far as cinematography, nothing, memorable that I recall. End of Watch is in my Netflix queue. It's one of those ones that I'm just waiting for being in the right frame of mind to watch that, knowing that it's going to be,
It's going to be brutal.
Yes. Very brutal.
I think, though, in refreshment, because I don't remember much about the shooting style of this, but I think between End of Watch and Charlie Countryman, there was a lot more of the jiggly monkey.
End of Watch is a little bit of a different thing because by definition,
well, it's found footage, right?
It breaks the rules a lot, but it is supposed to be by definition found footage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's all over the place. It breaks the rules all the time, like films now do. Now found footage films do. But a lot of it is very, very jiggly footage. But also, when it breaks the rules, he knows where to put the camera, and it's great. But it's a very different This just felt more. I was surprised with the lack because I'm not a huge fan of, what do you call it? The monkey footage?
The jiggly monkey.
Jiggly monkey.
The jiggly monkey footage. At times, I like that, like when Paul Greengrass does it. What my biggest problem with that kind of footage is that I feel like they're cheating. Like you don't know where things are, and you're cheating the actual event.
Yeah.
This film was so not tripod, of course, because we probably don't use those anymore. But the idea of being that even with a tripod with a steady shot, it was still so tense and terrifying because from so long away, you don't know where the shot's coming from. And when it does, it's so huge and horrific. It's terrible. But no, to go to your point, this is very different than the camera work in End of Watch.
Well, I go ahead, Andy.
I was going to say I really liked the shooting style in this. Also, I noticed it quite a bit, and I liked the shots where it was like it reminded me actually of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes when it was like the camera mounted onto the turret, and we were like moving around with the turret.
Oh, right, yes.
I liked that quite a bit in this.
That's true. There was a lot of that.
I have a question for you guys about just an element of the story because I felt I really liked how the story was so much just in the tank with these guys, but in the scene where they're fighting the Tiger tank, when the Tiger tank all of a sudden pops up and it's the three American tanks against the one Tiger tank. I personally found it very distracting in the story when we're with these American guys as they're dealing with the situation, and then all of a sudden we cut to inside the Tiger tank, and we're hearing the German guys talking to each other about getting prepped to do the next shot and stuff. And I don't know, it took me out of that moment because in the story I felt like this was one of those like confined space movies.
It was a POV break.
Yeah, all of a sudden it's just like it felt like we were jumping point of view. Exactly. Did you guys notice that, or did it bother you guys? Or
it bothered me at first because I'm a huge POV person, especially for movies when it's like in a confined space. But I liked it in the end because it helped me. Without that, I wouldn't have understood how much
all they said was you stay on that guy or something like that. It's like it wasn't even anything necessary. I didn't think.
I guess
it created suspense. It created suspense because there was a sense of how they were prepping to respond to. So we get sort of that dramatic irony of, okay, the tank, they take out the one tank, so the two are going to sort of split and flank, and it's like, okay, take over. The Germans are going to the left to that one, so we know, okay, our guys are safe. Are they going to be able to get there to save their comrades in time, and then when it's just the two of them sort of circling around and they're trying to flank and get around behind the Tiger, and they blow that first shot, and it's like you hear the Germans saying, "Okay, come on, let's go," and it's to me it created suspense of are we going to be able to respond in time to take out this tank, to hit it its weak spot, or are we going to be in trouble? And it created that suspense. Whereas if we didn't have that insight as how the Germans were responding, that they were ready to fire, that they were doing this or that, it was just, okay, well, they're going to come around this tank and they're going to fire, and okay, we'll see what happens. It gave some personality to the opponent as opposed to just an aimless machine.
Which is always a tough line to walk. It worked for me, but I understand, Andy. It seemed a little bit breaking out, but it was interesting.
Yeah. Apparently, just as an interesting side note, that is an actual tank that they used in that scene.
It's the only one, right?
Yeah,
it's the only one left in the world.
The only German tank?
The only Tiger one.
The only operating Tiger tank in the world. Yeah. They borrowed it for the film, and I guess it's the first time that an actual Tiger tank was ever used in a film.
We should clarify. It was the last functioning Tiger tank because they blew the crap out of it in this movie.
Spoiler alert. Are we bad at spoiler alerts?
That should have been done an hour ago.
Brad Pitt dies. Okay. Right? Well,
Am I right?
What are
Am
they
I
doing?
right? There's a guy who actually loses his face. Hey, I do have one final question. This is a final question, speaking specifically to that. Was there anything in here that, any of the violence that you experienced that you felt was overtly too gratuitous?
Too gratuitous?
Yeah. I guess that's not a thing. I think it's just gratuitous. Like, did you find anything that was that appeared to be over the top for the sake of getting people to talk about it?
At risk of saying, repeating myself again, World War II porn.
Yeah, right.
The idea of just upping the stakes for upping the stakes.
Right. Did anybody have a problem with that?
I personally actually hated. I mean, was horrified, but the guy that was on fire because his tank was put on fire.
Yeah, that
and
was
he was on fire, and he shot himself in the head. I found that not gratuitous. I thought that was horribly, horribly honest and probably true.
Yeah, that was the most difficult one, I think, for me to watch. But I agree. I did not find it
sense.
Over the top. Yeah.
I didn't have problems with the violence. I think you guys are right. It's there can be that line in these World War II movies of not going too far, but it's like World War II. I mean, it's all going to be horrible stuff. I just find it interesting, and Pete, I think it would be an interesting series to do one day of just like take a World War II movie from every decade, from the 40s to today, and just look at how the storytelling changes in the making of World War II films and what people look at, because I mean, Schindler's List also has a lot of horrible violence and just atrocities happening in here. I mean, I was completely shocked early on in this film when I saw the bulldozer bulldozing all the dead bodies. It's just I wasn't expecting that.
It's in color.
Yeah, and it's brutal, but it's war, and I hate to say it that way, but it's like I don't know if we've just come to kind of expect those sorts of things and take it for reality when we see them in a war film.
Mine was if I had to say my first thing when I just really was like, oh, okay, come on, but it sets the tone for the film, is the opening shot. Again, spoiler alert, of him tackling the SS on the horse and letting us see him stab him in the eyes.
Yeah. Boy, that opens with a bang. Yeah.
That for me was like, oh, Christ. Like, oh, shoot. What is this film going to be like? This is just too much. But then, unlike a Quentin Tarantino where, violence is used for crazy camp and all that cartoonish, it gets you into the headspace of the people. Of like, this is the first time we've met our hero, and that's what he did to a man on a white horse.
Yeah.
A horrible man.
Yeah, boy, that's a really good point. I didn't actually make that. That's a massive cultural connection.
Oh.
Stabbing the man on a white horse.
White horse, and this is the person.
And the fact that he was a Nazi on a white horse.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
Big fans of the white horses.
See, for me, the moment
the white horse that goes by after
after
Norman gets out. That was interesting.
Yeah.
I was wondering if it was the same horse.
Do you think it was the same horse?
I don't know. I hope so. For me, it was when they were coming across the guys that were sort of dug in the trenches, and they just rolled over those guys.
Yeah.
To me, that was a little bit. I wasn't expecting that, and Andy, I agree. The bulldozing the bodies and was not expected. Those were the two moments that sort of stuck out. I'm expecting people getting shot and limbs and body parts, but those just seem to be sort of about treating the human body as just material. And I think I can't remember which character said about conserving your bullets, shoot in bursts, because then you get a better bullet to meat ratio.
Yeah.
And that it just depersonalizes it, and which is part of war. If you don't kill them, they're going to kill you, and it's you've got to have that emotional distance. And to me, the bulldozing and the plowing, just rolling the tank over, got that across very well. Of we don't see these as people anymore; these are just bodies.
And what a fascinating response also to the very last shot of the film, the incredibly long crane shot of all of the people that our heroes had killed. I mean, they went on and on and on. But did you have that same response? I didn't. Did you have that same kind of like, oh my God, all of those people.
How many did they kill?
How many people, all those, it was just sort of like, wow. I mean, for me, I mean, that's what film, but also war and also patriotism does, at risk of making a point that I'm chasing up a tree like a hound. But the basic idea of like that last thing, like seeing those 30 bodies bulldozed made me cringe. That crane shot made me almost of hundreds of dead bodies. I didn't exactly know what to feel, and I think that's probably the point.
Well, and I think for me, I think the end shot also was just so gorgeously composed that I had a hard time getting past the beautiful composition. Like we're completely, bird's eye right over the tank, and I mean, and I was just like, why is he composing it this way? Where you've got bodies basically, because literally the tank is at the center of the crossroads, so you've got that metaphor going on. You've got bodies on all sides of the crossroads. You've got this road cutting through where all the soldiers are walking through, and then the tank is sitting there right in the middle. Half of it is like kind of dry, and the other half of it is like dark black mud, almost disappearing into the ground below it. And it was, I don't know, it was like a weird yin yang, and the way the turret is pointed, I couldn't figure out what he was trying to say with that. So I was completely distracted by that. I wasn't even paying attention to the bodies.
Yeah, why is the shot composed this way?
It's like just over the course of 2 hours, you were completely desensitized. Like,
right.
Screw this cultural identity shift. It only takes 2 hours.
And I think that's a really strong point.
Yeah, right. I mean, it opens with the stabbing in the eye, and that's pretty much it. You're done.
Norman wouldn't kill one person.
Yeah.
Norman had to be physically forced to kill one person, and then we see in 24 hours where they've all become.
Right.
Well,
go ahead, Steve.
I was just going to say, I think the difference between bulldozing bodies that we don't know anything about is that it's treating them as material versus, just we're treating these bodies like garbage versus those bodies strewn around the tank. Those are the bad guys.
They were aggressors.
They were aggressors. We can see, especially that sniper. How much do you hate that sniper?
Real bad.
You see him sneaking up. You're like, that's a bad dude. And also, it's an SS platoon. So it's not just Germans, it's SS, which we've seen that, War Daddy has a specific vendetta against SS. These are the worst of the worst. So it's already, we shouldn't feel bad because these are the really, really bad guys. So it's okay that there's hundreds of them killed. They're what's bad about Germany. So it's okay to take them out versus some anonymous bodies being treated like garbage.
You guys, this is so deep. This may be the deepest conversation we've ever had. We've been going on for a long time.
Can we talk about the score for a moment?
Yeah, let's make that one of our final points, shall we?
Okay, because I did not know that it was Stephen Price who had also done the score for Gravity.
Right.
Because I found it online and was listening to it, this afternoon after seeing the film to reflect on it. And it's a case of not really a musical score. There are musical moments, but it is really a soundscape because there's moments, and I couldn't tell, because there's parts where they're rolling along in the tank and there's sounds, and then there's like chanting or people talking. I thought, is this supposed to be? But it created a mood.
Oh, I thought it was. I honestly, at one point, I thought it was bleed through from the theater next door.
Me too.
It's in the score, and it to me, it's one of the most eerie and powerful scores again of really capturing. Why did I come out of this film feeling just so moved? And as I was listening to the score, I thought that's why. Because it wasn't just musical, moments or themes that carried through or swelling orchestras. It was structured sound that conveyed the emotional weight of each of those scenes. And to me, that, I think, carries the weight of the subject matter of the film in this case. So if you have an opportunity, there's a couple articles, I think, out there about his structure of the score and what he wove into it of like tank sounds and songs to build the soundscape. And I think that's one of the things that really helped carry the film and make it press emotionally on me.
I thought at times he went way, way, way over the top. All right.
Yeah.
But we don't have to talk about that. There were some times when I was like, oh my gosh, quiet music. I got it.
You thought it was too much?
Way too much at times. There were certain times when I felt like a little bit of quieter stuff. Then he was like, this episode is over. And it's like, okay, I get it. But this is like such a gritty, dirty, mud-filled film that I didn't need a huge theme for just this. I mean, at times it works so perfectly, and at times it was like, oh God, so much. I don't want to be reminded that you're in charge of this, scoring this film. You were fine.
Tom, can people hire you out to like accompany films as they're watching so you can sing those things up? Here's the climax of the movie.
You really love this sequence.
It's really
Great.
I think we got a little bit to throw in for the pony prize.
That's fantastic.
Tom Metz is going to do your voicemail.
To sit beside me and sing along and tell me the thing that's going on thematically in the film.
Shia LaBeouf took his tooth out.
He seems a little bit weird, but he cries a lot. All right. Pete,
Hey,
I think it's time to take us home.
I think we need to wrap this puppy up. Do we have any? Can we do very brief, round the horn, final thoughts on this film, Andy?
I mean, I enjoyed the characters in the film, but I just wish that the story was stronger and sucked me in more because it ended up leaving me feeling flat.
And Steve?
I will disagree with Andy and say it had a lot of emotional resonance to it. It did something new for the genre. It is more than just about the characters. It's really about broader things about war and the weight of war and this close family, and very much enjoyed it. And as I said, I'm still working through my emotions after seeing this film.
Tommy?
As far as the plot and the characters, they left me feeling a little bit empty, but the film itself took me on such a journey that was so harrowing, maybe as empty as the characters themselves.
I really like this film. This was it's a war film. I think that's going to stick with me. As Steve said, it's an angle on the war. It's a setting in the war that I feel like we haven't seen, and I didn't know enough about, even in spite of some of the more anticipated tropes. I felt like the setting and the characters actually lifted it up beyond some of those things. So I thought it was fantastic. I think we should rank it.
Flick chart, film war daddies, it's flick chart time.
There we go.
So worth the wait.
So worth it. Hey, head over to flickchart.com /TNR Film Board, and then you can see all the films that we've talked about over the last, over 2 years. We've been doing these.
Has it been that long?
It has been that long. And we can see how this one stacks up. Is it going to make it into the top 10?
We shall find out.
Loading.
Fury or Cloud Atlas?
Oh, Fury.
I will say Cloud Atlas, but
Wow.
I'm going to be the lone dissenter on this one. Fury or Looper? I am definitely Looper.
I'm still Fury.
No, still Fury. I have big problems with
I think that's
Looper.
a tie.
All right, here we go. Andy, are you ready?
Okay. Are we doing 1, 2, 3?
Yep.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Rock. Oh, tie.
Oh, it's a tie,
right.
So Fury wins. Okay.
Here we go. One more time. Let's do it.
1, 2, 3. Scissors.
Rock.
Oh,
Crush
man.
you. I crush you.
Fury or Dawn of the Planet of the Apes? I'm Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
Fury.
Fury.
God, you guys, really?
Yes.
Wow.
Screw you, apes!
I do have to say that after our Dawn of the Planet of the Apes review, I legitimately was thinking the entire time I was watching Fury how Tom would have hated this movie if it was like all apes.
What? Just because of my...
Just because of apes hurting one another? Like, what if it was like the SS apes against the second armored division apes?
If it was a bunch of like tank puppies? Oh.
Yes.
Screw that.
Tank puppies against the SS kittens.
Tank puppies is the worst. Come on, Team Bow Wow. Like they'd all have cute names. I'm still talking. Go ahead.
There we go.
Go ahead.
It's
All
Fury
right.
Buddies. There we go. Okay.
All right, here we go. Fury or Edge of Tomorrow? Edge of Tomorrow, please. Come on.
Edge of Tomorrow.
Thank the heavens. All right.
Planet of the Apes. No, just kidding. Edge of Tomorrow.
Well, that puts it at number 4. It didn't let us. It's these weird flick chart things. It didn't let us rank it against Guardians of the Galaxy. It put it at number 4.
I think we would have called it Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Tell me.
I
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I would have had it much lower. It's above Prisoners now, and I disagree with that. And World War Z, but hey, you guys wanted it up there. So.
Really?
Oh yeah,
that's
listen
tough.
to you. Hey, it's welcome to passive aggressive flick chart rating. No, really, you guys wanted it there.
That's right.
It deserves
this is
to
a good
be there.
conference. A good call, gentlemen. Thank you so much for your time and your wisdom, and for this was a good one. This was a good film. Except for Andy didn't like it. So, Tommy, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you for having me. This is my new voice. I don't know why it got so high. Thank you for having me.
That was crazy. And Steve, thank you, sir.
Oh, I had a great time tonight.
Andy, it's always good to hear you.
Best job I ever had.
Best job I ever had.
Best job I ever had.
Steve, we're getting paid.
Oh,
We're getting
Steve.
paid.
Steve,
We're getting
there was
paid?
one
Oh,
thing.
for crying out loud.